Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome. This is the 1916 Company, but we are still Watchbox Studios for tonight. And this is Watches Tonight. Sean's on the switcher, and as you might have heard, we are going to Dubai Watch Week. We will have daily updates of the watches that we find all week long. Jumping into the chat box, Edward Ledden, Soma R, Enrique Cassiano, Orto Charles, Mark S. from Brooklyn. Guys, this evening we ask whether Patek Philippe is overpriced. We chat live and I share your wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. If you enjoy this program, follow me on Instagram because we are going to have updates from Dubai Watch Week several times a day while I am in the Middle East. And while we will be posting full-length reviews, this is where the action will happen in practically real time. Tim_Mosso on Instagram. All right, viewer wrist shots number one. Tiago T leads off with his Grail watch attained, the FP Journe Chronomètre Souverain Havana dial, and I'm wondering how he took the picture with the camera on the table, but all the same, looking good. Peter A rolls in his Ferrari 296 GTB with a rare Harry Winston sighting. We have Michael C showcases his Longomatic Perpetual, bought from Watchbox, which is now the 1916 Company. Thank you for trusting our companies. Phil C and his Longa 1 Moonphase roll with the Mercedes-Benz E53 AMG and Jean Rousseau strap, always a great combo. And James L kicks back with some refreshments in his Salmon Dial Chapek Antarctique sports watch. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Who's in here? We've got Brop from San Francisco, we've got Ivan, we've got Abdul R, we've got Deech, we've got Jim Millett, who's a good friend across my many social media, Joseph P, who might actually be in our wrist shots tonight, S&J. By the way, if you haven't seen Joseph's collector conversation, open up a different window, watch it afterward, keep me streaming now, but you're going to love to see this. An awesome dude, a real gentleman, and a true connoisseur. We've got THS from Louisville. We've got Ron H. We've got Butik, one from Poland. Coming to us from the Big Apple, Matt F., Kevin Hawthorne. Welcome, guys. We got Pizza Man from Minnesota and Jens staying up late in continental Europe in Frankfurt. All right, so let's ask a philosophical question here because we like very expensive things on this show. And so just about any watch we consider on Watches Tonight, it's going to be expensive by the standards of most people who are not into luxury watches. But when is even a luxury watch too expensive? Now, this is a question for us collectors because watches aren't getting any cheaper. And unlike recent trends in staple goods, eggs, milk, gas, watches really aren't subject to massive surges of input costs. And unlike many consumer items that surged during the pandemic, most luxury watches have fairly short supply chains localized primarily inside of Europe. So it's a bit of a different market in terms of the way prices inflate and grow. The surge in watch prices was well underway prior to the pandemic. Back in 2019, we were already talking about crazy Nautilus prices. And it accelerated wildly during the pandemic as crypto and NFTs minted new millionaires every day, equities exploded, SPACs led to a raft of hyped IPOs, especially in tech and electric cars, and revenge spending by housebound wealth decimated luxury watch inventories. But in a sense, consider how little your money buys today. And by today, I mean the modern era, the 21st century. So in 1925, Patek Philippe took an order for the Henry Graves super complication. It's well known. It was ordered for a price of $15,000. That's $267,000 in 2023 fall money. So that's, by today's right now standards, $267,000. And think about that. We're talking about a scratch-built, bespoke, 24 complication, dual-sided monster that required 8 years of design and fabrication for about $250,000 in modern money. Today, $250,000 won't even buy you a Patek Philippe 5520P, which is a series-built dual-time watch with an alarm. That costs $281,000. So Henry Graves paid less, relatively speaking, for that bespoke grapefruit-sized multi-complication than you would pay for a series-produced watch today. And what about the Nautilus? Well, it debuted as the reference 3700 in 1976 for $3,100, which is $17,161 in 2023 money. And that's very similar to the $17,000 it cost when redesigned as the 5711 for 2006. So far, so good. Things aren't going crazy with the Nautilus. But keep in mind that $17,000 in 2006 money is $26,386 in right now money, or slightly less than the current $27,800 price of a full bracelet Aquanaut. And the Aquanaut is junior to the Nautilus in price, finish, and fabrication complexity, so we have to assume that if there were such a thing as a steel Nautilus Jumbo right now, it would cost more than this. So we would be looking at some inflation, even relative to 2006. So let's ask this. How does the current 5811 compare to the older 5711, the watch that went out of production in 2021? Well, it's not as straightforward because the 5811 1G is only available in white gold and it has no steel equivalent today. There have been some changes, not many. The case is a little bit larger. The bracelet has a much better clasp with a double deployant and micro adjustment, but fundamentally this is very much like the previous full gold versions of the 5711. It even has the same movement inside. And let's look at the rose gold 5711 1R, which was available until very recently, to get an approximate sense of how the current 5811 compares to the pricing of its predecessor. Well, the late 2021 retail price for the rose gold 5711 1R was $59,140. Now, in September 2023 dollars, that is, and that, by the way, is the latest for which we have actual figures, but that $59,140 right now would be $65,280 if this were still for sale and offered today at the exact same inflation-adjusted price. Now, let's bring back the newest Nautilus in white gold, that $69,720 5811 1G. When compared directly, we can see that the new watch is running about 6.8% beyond bare inflation, but that's A, very modest by luxury goods standards, and B, fails to take the aftermarket into account. And this is where things get really interesting. We're going to follow the facts where they lead, but before we do that, let's see a few of yours on mine. Joseph P., he was in the chat box. Now he's on your screen. Ready for Christmas with the Rolex Submariner and the Christmas tree for 2023. A classical cuff shot right there. Nathaniel K. of Fort Lauderdale has it all with a JLC Grand Memovox perpetual calendar alarm with moon phase. Looking good, one of my favorites. And then we have Dan R. with his Glasuta Original Pano Reserve from Germany, dining at Queen's Landing at Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. Rob V. wears his Ed Sheeran G-Shock at Starved Rock State Park in Illinois. And Dan V. of Milwaukee hits the trails with his 1916 bought Panerai PAM 113, and he got that from Alex. Thank you for trusting our company, Dan. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your wrist on my list. Okay. What's going on right here? We've got Guy Mood saying, good evening, watch aficionados, and I welcome you. Tim Mancuso saying, I got a cool Patek recently. See you in Dubai. Tim, I will see you in Dubai. That will be a lot of fun, maybe too much fun. We have Tylo G joining in with John Goodman, Mufadal G, and catching his first live show, which I appreciate. We got David Merrick from Middlesbrough, England, which I definitely appreciate. Anyone staying up late, the Watch Lounge, asking what's up with the Big Apple. The Big Apple is always up. It is the city that never sleeps. And then we have Jim Millett saying he's had his PAM 113 since 2005, still love it. That is a classic Panerai. Okay, so now, back to our topic. Is Patek Philippe too expensive right now? So there are two things we need to consider. One is inflation, which is the natural escalation of prices, generally due to a combination of inputs. And then there is greedflation, where companies raise prices far out of proportion to inflation, but they still blame it on inflation. But it misses the bigger question of whether Patek watches are too expensive relative to what you get. So in most marketplaces, anything that is overpriced relative to demand will lose value once purchased. Many cars, for example, sell for dramatically less used because their asking prices are above what the market will sustain. Here's a Lucid Air Dream Edition that cost $171,000 in 2022 and sold for, well, 100 grand basically a year later. That is an absolute bath. Someone got cleaned. And as far as the marketplace is concerned, this car costs too much new, and its primary value is as transportation, and the resale value is, well, devastating. So unless you're going to keep it forever, drive it into the ground, and use it for transport, you're getting burned on that car, flipping it a few months later. In contrast, the G-Class Mercedes-Benz, especially an AMG, has been spotted at new Mercedes-Benz authorized dealers on the original sales floor with aftermarket adjustments of $125,000 and more on top of the six-figure price that Mercedes-Benz recommends dealers charge for it. Because otherwise, the owners would just buy at retail and then flip the trucks for 300 grand and collect their, whatever, $125,000, $150,000 premium. So the dealer adjusts the price on the sales floor. Remember, car dealerships work as franchises. So with only a few exemptions, generally some EVs like Lucid, Rivian, and Tesla, car dealers are franchised. They're not authorized dealers the way a Patek dealer would be, which is much more beholden to the brand and its recommended price. So, now we begin to see the true measure of Patek's pricing. The question isn't whether a watch's price has accelerated beyond meat and potatoes inflation, because that isn't relative and relevant to high luxury goods which play by their own market rules. How do you like my take on meat and potatoes? The real question is whether Patek is charging above market price. Remember that Lucid. Lucid's charging above market price. Mercedes is not. The real question is whether Patek is charging above market price, par, or below market price for the 5811. Now we can see that the Patek is actually inexpensive to the original owner because the used market for a 5811 is insane. And remember, Patek dealers are going to charge the retail price. They're going to be spot checked by Patek. They're not allowed to discount, but they're also not allowed to gouge, or they shouldn't be. And unlike Mercedes dealers who are allowed to charge whatever they want, the Patek dealer does have to charge something closely resembling the retail price of just under $70,000. So you can see the market for the 5811 as a used watch is insane relative to the sub $70,000 retail price. And unlike Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe hasn't given its dealers license to charge car dealer style premiums on hot models. The dealers are supposed to sell for list if they're being honest. So what is the holding period? I know you're wondering because you just saw that the new Nautilus is already available on Chrono 24. Well, what does Patek expect you to do? Well, after extensive discussions with many Patek experts, industry experts, and even a few Patek brand insiders, it appears that Patek expects a buyer to keep a sensitive watch like a 5811 for a period of at least 5 years before selling. Now, a person who receives a 5811 allocation and intends to sell the watch immediately will disappoint Patek Philippe, but genuinely have a license to print money. The secondary market for a 5811 allows a person to score more than 2 2/3 the initial investment instantly. There's no legitimate investment in this world other than maybe a lottery ticket that can beat that kind of return. Just don't get caught. Now, even if a collector does the right thing and holds for half a decade, Patek steadily price hikes the watches in the catalog, and those steady price hikes will support the value of older models from these model lines. And there is zero chance, I'm telling you right now, that a Nautilus 5811, even if the aftermarket cools a little bit, there is zero chance that it will be worth less than its original retail price. And I guarantee you it will always be worth more than its inflation-adjusted retail price. It is just as strong an investment over the long term as it is over the short term. That's a real keeper if you're in it as a collector as opposed to a speculator. You're still going to do quite well. Basically, hold without fear. And the 5811 is likely to have a limited lifespan. Now, the original white gold Nautilus, the 3711 1G, came out in 2004. It was out for 4 and 5, discontinued for 6. It had a 2-year run. And the 5711J in yellow gold had about a 3, maybe a 3.5-year run. Look at the marketplace for that short-lived white gold 3711. And at debut, and as the debut model, I think the 5811 will always be special, and I suspect that its production run will amount to only a handful of years. I don't think this is still going to be in the catalog 7, 8, 9 years from now. And again, is this Patek Philippe overpriced? Look at the marketplace, and it becomes very clear that Patek Philippe has left a huge amount of money on the table. If they charged 185 grand, they would get it, which meant they were showing respect for the dealer, but also respect for the customer. It's expensive, but it's also quite realistically priced. How do other Patek models fare under scrutiny? Some do well, some not so well. But sometimes the resale value of a Patek Philippe is not actually its enduring value. It's something else, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Jumping into the chat box right here, Young Kim, Tim Wright, Abdul. We've got Edward K. Ledden. We've got Sean Hansen. We've got Edis Edward from South Korea. Thank you for getting up early with me in Korea. We have Todd asking, does Tim lie? I've been known to exaggerate. I hope I don't lie, though. We have Thomas Burnett, and we have Marcos V in the box saying this is his favorite time of the week, and I really appreciate that. Wrist shots, number 3, Neil S. shares the Tudor Pelagos FXD Marine Nationale bought from the 1916 boutique in Boca Raton. Remember, for those of you just joining in, Watchbox is now 1916. New watches, Rolex CPO, and traditional pre-owned all under one roof. Stephen E. of Detroit enjoys the company of his newly arrived Hermes H08, and I think that is the titanium model. Rob R. is out to dinner with his classical Rolex Explorer, looking good. Chris R. is a man after my own heart with Dan Reuter DR02 and Moose the French Bulldog. We love our watches and whiskers. We got Mike P. from Omaha, who keeps the time through generations with his great-grandfather's Hamilton pocket watch on a sort of gimbal, it appears. That is very cool stuff. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. What else is going on in the box? We got Richard Jean joining in from Brooklyn, and we've got Shagor joining in. Also, check out his collector conversation. What else is going on? We've got Julio P. saying, nice shirt, thank you so much. This is probably the most comfortable shirt I own. And since I am going to Dubai, and this is relatively, I would say, thin, skimpy by Philadelphia winter standards, I'm probably going to bring this with me. Perfect for the desert. All right. Is Patek Philippe too expensive? Enough with the Nautilus. It's been done to death. It was instructive, but we're past that now. Let's examine several of the most interesting Patek Philippe watches currently available and see whether the secondary market considers them to be too expensive or not expensive enough. So let's go back to that sensational 5520p in platinum. We talked about this earlier. This was launched in 2019. This is the minute repeater of alarm watches and the king of travel watches. It's got it all, this 5520p. 42.2 millimeters in platinum, twin time zones, each with AM/PM indicator, a pointer date, automatic winding, an alarm that sounds like a minute repeater, complete with strike governor, and digital time setting for a 24-hour alarm that can be activated and blocked as you see fit. The caliber is as gorgeous in appearance and sound as a minute repeater would be. You can see the striker and the governor right there. And it uses repeater gongs, strikers in steel, and a centrifugal governor to regulate its tone, volume, and cadence. It's the real deal. Lume is sports watch level. And the Calatrava Pilot dial is supremely legible. From a functional and fundamental tech standpoint, this is far more interesting than the $300,000 one-year-only green dial 5711. It suffers, however, from two big handicaps in the marketplace that hurt its performance. First, it looks like a watch that costs $57,000, which is the white gold Calatrava Travel Time 5524G. Second, there is a perception that alarm watches are mid-market complications from companies such as JLC or Vulcain, or even entry-level complications from brands such as Seiko with the Bellmatic and Tudor with the Heritage Advisor. That dents perceptions and takes some of the sheen off the 5520p when people are looking at things that they feel are comparable. They're not, and I can tell you that because I've experienced all these watches, but they're going to think that Patek is a lesser watch because of the comparables. And unfortunately, the 5520p is unable to recover its $281,000 retail price as a pre-owned watch. This is about the middle of the market, neither the cheapest nor the most expensive on Chrono24. Many are available under $200,000 from first world sellers, and remember, this is a watch that came out in 2019. Almost all of them are still box papers and under warranty, so we have to conclude that a 5520p is too expensive to buy new. So this is a watch you're going to want to buy pre-owned to get the best value. And it's really unfortunate because that particular watch is one of my 3 favorite current Pateks, and it is an awesome candidate for a pre-owned purchase at a sustainable used price. It also might be the most versatile Patek of any description. Great watch, tough pricing. Sticking with Patek dress watches now, but moving down market, let's consider the arresting Calatrava Pilot 5226G, a remarkable 2022 release that combines elements of sports watches and dress watches in a single 40mm white gold package. So buzz for this model was very strong out of the gate because the look is so different. The focus was on its textured charcoal gradient dial. That's what they call this, textured charcoal gradient, and its freestanding lugs that project out over the case. You can actually slide a piece of paper between the lug and the knurled case band. It's a very cool look, and the lugs are attached to the case back, not the case itself. The textured dial uses a Moser-like gradient fade, and you can see this is much more than opaline frosted. This is a really rough, low grit type of sandpaper surface, and it has ecru details that work. Photina, yes, but also adding much needed warmth to this otherwise grayscale watch. It has lovely romantic syringe hands and lume that glows like a proper sports watch, all of which is to say this could very well be your only watch. And it has struck a chord. Many collectors are telling me that this is the first Patek dress watch they've considered in a long time or even ever. And I would say many collectors previously interested only in Patek sports watch models or dress watches exclusively from rated independent brands are talking to me about putting in 5226G orders. Should they? Let's take a look. By every conventional measure, the 5226 has proved to be correctly priced and maybe even slightly underpriced as a new watch. Take a look at these prices, from the high $40,000 range to about $51,000. Now this watch is $40,220 new, but even the lowest and most questionably available inventory on Chrono24, like listings with super low prices and stock photos, those are still in the mid $40,000 range, representing about a $5,000 premium used. In the mid-priced used range, you're going to be looking at $48,000 to about $50,000, maybe $51,000. That seems to be the rule. So far from being too expensive, the 5226G is fairly priced and a product that can be bought new with confidence. I think in the long run, its value will roughly track inflation. I don't think you'll ever lose. This isn't a money maker like a 5811, but I do think in the long run, you will at least tread water, at best come out a little bit ahead, depending on how long this variant of the watch runs. Okay, Patek Philippe is famous for its perpetual calendars, so let's look at one, the 5320G-011. This is a 2022 salmon dial variant of the white gold 5320G that came out in 2017, so it's a fairly new model line overall. Certain types of Patek Philippe are like a V12 Ferrari. You need to be qualified and approved to even order one. The money is not going to make the difference. It's whether the Ferrari dealer and Ferrari out of Italy can trust you. And the new Patek 30-piece limited edition 1938p tribute to Philippe Stern that just came out, it is one of those approval and application pieces. And this is a watch that costs nearly $1 million, and having money alone is not enough to get you this watch. You need to be a proven, trustworthy Patek Philippe customer. So, other Patek Philippe watches, unlike this one, or like the V8 Ferrari Roma, the entry-level car, not quite bottom of the catalog, that would be like a Portofino M, but upper entry level, maybe mid-price, just below some of the mid-engine supercars. Now, anyone with money can have a Ferrari Roma. You walk in, you order it, or you take delivery from stock. And it's considered to be the start of your relationship with the dealer and Ferrari. Now, the 5320G011 is that kind of Patek Philippe. As a perpetual calendar, we're not talking a simple Calatrava or Aquanaut. It's the kind of watch that represents the heart and soul of the brand's heritage, dating back to the first 1925 wrist perpetual calendar and the 1941 1526. And it's not exclusive in any sense except the price. Now, it costs $97,820. That is the only barrier to entry here. That means, as with the V8 Ferrari market, there are going to be many examples for sale, both new and used, and that's not going to be the measure of true value. Remember, those used watches you're seeing slightly depreciated were someone's point of entry into upper-level Patek Philippe ownership, just like the many used Ferrari Romas on the market right now were someone's point of entry to upper-level Ferrari ownership. That means we should start with retail pricing. 5320G is $97,820, and many examples are available used for below this price right now, even though this watch came out a year ago. And again, the salmon dial came out in 2022. Looking back slightly further, we can see the older 2017 cream dials selling for even a few $1,000s less than that. That indicates that as a watch alone, the 5320G011 is likely too expensive. But remember, there's more here than meets the eye, and you're paying for more than a watch when you buy this thing new. This Patek, like a V8 Ferrari, is the key that unlocks the upper level pieces. Buying and keeping a volume-priced Patek or Ferrari is the gateway to establishing a strong relationship with the brand. And since Patek has very few factory-owned stores, it's also going to be the key to establishing a relationship with the authorized dealer who's going to put in the good word and the application for you with Patek Philippe. It carries more weight than simply making your first Patek a Calatrava or basic sports watch. Patek will take note, and it will take note again when it asks and sees that you have kept the watch when you put in your application for the sublime Lefty Platinum Mono Pusher Split Second Perpetual Calendar 5373P. Also, if you're a one-and-done Patek buyer, this is a fun piece to own. The 5320G will make a lot of sense. It has epic tiered lugs that look fantastic and draw from history. It has practical lume that makes it an all-the-time watch, a versatile 40mm size, and the movement does not disappoint at this price, either in spec or finish. It has an everyday-friendly calendar complication. It's a great watch if this is where you start and end. But again, you need to consider this as more than just a watch that will lose $10,000 out of the gate. This is the key to the castle if you have interest in progressing through the tech tree and the ranks of exclusivity right up to something like a Grandmaster chime, theoretically. This is where it starts. Okay, let's take a look at the box. Asking, Abdul saying, not a bad watch to start that 80 relationship. We have a question. Tim, can you give your opinion on the Code 1159 lineup? I like the perpetual calendar in white gold. If you like rose, it's nice that way too. I like the star wheel. That's my favorite Code 1159. And if you want something as a long-term speculative piece, get a first-year automatic chronograph, because they discontinued the dial and they discontinued the date wheel, which had numerals that did not match the dial or the tachymeter. They fixed that in the second year. I would also say take a look at the Russian market limited edition in white gold with enamel dial that came out in 2019. That is a really nice piece. If you're a Code 1159 dude, you're going to like that because it presaged the gradient dials in lacquer that came the next year. But the Bolshoi Theater limited edition is the Code limited piece to own right now. La Universelle is interesting and the GPHG Aiguidon, but I think it's a clumsy grand complication and I'm not a fan of that one. Todd G saying, Tim, just bought a 2022 Aquanaut 5167A complete from the original owner for 45 grand. Felt like it was a good deal. Your thoughts would hold value? Probably. Mark S., Always the spoiler says he hates those 5320 lugs. That's fine, Mark. You have one vote. I have one vote. It's like Democrats and Republicans. I will cancel your vote. And then what else is going on? Tim, what happened to your website with podcasts and essays? We folded it into Watchbox, and we are working on getting the blogs and the podcasts back up and running. And since Watchbox has been folded into 1916, I suppose you could be saying it has been folded into the 1916 company. But I will have my own journal and podcasts on the site very soon. Okay, jumping back in. Hi, Tim. Is Romain Gaultier C versus Laurent Ferrier Auto a decent comparison? What's your pick and why? The Gaultier cannot go swimming, the Ferrier can. End of discussion for me. This is a sports watch after all, not a sporty watch. And I still think that the Ferrier finish actually outdoes the Gaultier at the sports watch level. Now, let's take a look at a recently launched and recently discontinued steel Patek Philippe. So, please note, this wasn't an application piece or intended for maximum exclusivity when it was new. It was considered to be a watch that anyone could buy, even first time in a dealer, on request. All of which proves that any Patek Philippe, not just the sports watches and application models, can be considered less expensive in hindsight and even become a very lucrative investment. So the 5960, which was an annual calendar flyback chronograph with a power reserve, that came out as a mass-produced model in precious metal in 2006. The steel 5961A with a white dial came out in 2014, and the black dial 5961A-010 came out in 2017, and it was made for best guess 7 to 9 months. It didn't even get a full model year. So it is rare. It is steel. It is complicated. It is full factory bracelet and Patek. That's a great combination. So this watch, which retailed for $51,301 in 2017, now goes for up to twice that amount only 6 years later. Remember, at the time, this was not considered exclusive or range-topping, so any new Patek can, with a little bit of luck, wind up surprising in the marketplace, but you'll always have the pleasure of it on your wrist. That's what I say. Don't buy them as investments. This brand, more than most, will surprise you, and at the very least, you will get your money's worth. But buy what you like above all, because I can tell you 6 years ago, that was my favorite Patek in the catalog, and it was nowhere near the most artisanal, complicated, or exclusive. It was just cool. All right, guys. Viewers' Shots number 4, Michael adds a new and lively Dan Reuter DR02 to his collection. Welcome to the club. I'm wearing mine right now. John K. of Hong Kong celebrates his 70th birthday. May you enjoy many more with this Concord Centurion with Bjorn Berg dial. We have Pablo O. of Mexico, features his Universal Genève vintage alarm, and the De Bethune DB Digital Season 2, my favorite De Bethune. William B. doubles up with the Universal Genève White Shadow and my prototype timeout hat. Guys, I will soon be launching the new hat as well as t-shirts because I wanted to give people something that they can buy cheaply to show their watch enthusiasm so you don't have to go in 5 figures every time you accessorize. Watch, shirts, and hats coming soon. And finally, Roger M. takes us home with a spectacular Hawaiian beach shot and his Carl F. Bucher Patravi Scuba Tech, which features manta rays on dial and caseback, and he finds friendly manta rays right outside that scene on the shore. That must be dreamy. Guys, join me during Dubai Watch Week. Stay tuned to Watchbox Reviews, where I will be posting comprehensive updates of the watches being launched and shown at Dubai Watch Week. We'll do mini interviews, we'll do current events and updates. It's going to be your one-stop shop. And of course, follow me, Tim_Mosso on Instagram, where I will be frantically posting photos and short-form videos of everything that I see at the Middle East and possibly the world's premier consumer-facing watch show. Thanks to everyone who joined in. We will not have the show on this channel here the next 2 weeks. I will be in Dubai and then home for Thanksgiving, but after that we will return after 2 weeks with Watches Tonight. Time out, Tim out, Sean out, and thanks for logging on.